Distinct.
عملتوا له الكراسي زي ما بده.
طبعا. This is hilarious.
Morning.
تعرفي شو قبل ما يحكوا
Which one you said you need time to set up?
No, no. لا no setup. Good. رنا انتوا رح تعملوا لايف ستريمينج وتسجلوها ترجعوا تبعتوها للاهالي ولا لا؟
اظني يس. هيك قايل بالايميل صح؟
I know it was live streaming مش عارفه اذا هي
شو ريكوردد كمان فيعني هلا نشوف.
اذا حدا سالنا
هلا انا
في ناس على الجروب مثلا قايلين انه ما اللي بيشتغلوا قايلين في منهم مش رح يقدروا يجوا.
صح اللي بيشتغل اتس نوت ايزي. جود مورنينج صباح الخير اهلين.
مشتي
they have it, if they have it on the doors, they should basically, where it has be able to self-identify if you've traveled in the last 2 weeks. The guards. Yeah, so if somebody's coming, the apartment's just, like, say, look, I just spent the last week in Iran.
Yeah.
And you'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, well, thank you, but you can't come in.
Yeah, okay,
So,
all right.
Marty,
Good morning, good morning. Keep going, Nadine, keep going. Good, empty. I'm good, alhamdulillah. Empty? لا ما عم باجي. I can't لا I haven't been because Aisha's alone so I feel bad about Aisha let me come by Uber. هلا لحالها I'm kind of
Yeah.
like in بس هذيك المرة I had to like take Uber. ما بنحبها I can't always.
طيب ايش صار السواق؟ انتوا سواق مش عارفة واحد
بس خلص يعني أقول لها عندك I don't need anybody. Obviously sometimes I do بس إنه ما بتحب الأمن.
طيب جوزك وين؟ هذاك امتى؟
He has been away هلا for 4 weeks.
اوه واو
Good.
بده يقعد خلاص؟
يعني هلا بيقعد في المية بعدين برجع بروح.
البنات رح يجوا؟ اكيد نو؟
يعني أنا قلت له ما بدي أخذ صيف أحس ما يشتغل يعني أو ما يسوي شيء خلاص.
هلا بدنا
بتيجي بس
طيب كريمة خلتها هلا
لا
one more she's a junior
بس she has to take on she has to go somewhere this year because when she transfers she must
اه
when she graduates this year. أنا أسمع أنا بدو كل الأصل.
لا انا بحزن قبل كل شيء مرتب ما في شيء
تعرفي في واحدة جاية من أمريكا صار لها سنة كم أنا قعدت سنوات أنا أم لاست من قبل سنة بتحسيني بقيت بشوف كثير هلا because they have to
We like, so
إذا بدي أحكي حدا
everything's like.
أنا travel ما بحس إنها عمالها عودة.
ACS
She has to get okay from the government. So she got the okay to travel and then قبل أسبوع قالت لها sorry you can't travel. US employees ما بصير شيء صار. So she had to do
I know it's not okay we're trying to get better deals of their
Yeah, of course.
So you knew from the beginning you had to cancel, yeah.
Oh, definitely. And I tried. I did 4 times.
يصير شيء فيهم هم هناك يحاولوا
وأنا عندي أنا 4 times. بس
Everyone's been in Aqaba, no one's leaving the country.
too يعني
Everyone's gonna be in Aqaba. Did I sign up? I ordered a book. I know. I can't remember if I signed up or not.
have you read I'm reading it right now and it's blowing my mind. Yeah, it's about how I told you about it.
Oh,
How
and I ordered it.
It's
That's
about your mind.
yeah, that's
It's about how kids are
yeah. Yeah. What happens? Why are you guys all scared? I just thought you'd be there, then you're always in the front.
But it's like, how can you still be influenced?
The compass.
Was he still
In
here?
elementary school.
How old?
Middle and high school.
Decades.
Even my cousin still remembers me.
Separate from our parents.
Right.
Well, since Tamara gave me an opportunity, good morning. She attacked me right when I moved. It's okay, I got to an argument with the mayor this morning, so I'm still pissed at him. He thinks these things are a waste of time. So they're not a waste of time. You waste your time. He's got a therapy appointment. It's in another place. I said, I don't understand.
Yeah. So, but the rest
How
of
would
the
you say?
yeah.
Why? Well, sometimes it's
My parents was come back down when I was away. But what kind of line? Don't worry, do it.
She walked in with one.
And I think that was Sean and Eddie went there when yeah.
Shall I start? Can you turn the TV on?
Everybody's gonna be up about it. We haven't had it there, so we go anywhere. We travel in the summer. She's invited to, yeah. Everyone's traveling.
They stay quiet behind the
I wouldn't worry. That's like my nightmare from like December. Good, how are you doing?
They're not just hear the
We're in the process, we're going to stay here.
But everything's super casual. It's the same issue, but still, it takes up. Getting out of here. It's like my.
My husband is like,
My hair is a mess.
So for questions too?
We make sure we can record.
What else?
We can record it too.
Yeah, let's go.
I like that. I like the You're in the school.
Good morning, everyone. It's 8 o'clock, we'll get started. Thank you for coming out. So I'm just going to kind of give you a blink into my life over the last week. So I have a degree in political science. I have a master's degree in educational leadership. And I've read just about everything there is to read about the coronavirus and what it does and symptoms. And last week I came down with a cold. So we stayed home for 3 days. We had an accrediting team here. And so for 2 days I was at home but online with them, talking to them. Because what I really wanted to do was come to school. And my wife kept saying, you know, every letter you send out, you say, if you're sick, stay home. So in addition to our accrediting visit, obviously the focus of the world is now on what we're doing about the virus. I've tried to communicate as much as I possibly could with parents and trying to find that balance between what's sensible, how do I protect students in our community, what should I be doing, what are the personal needs of people who make decisions about traveling, tied to the organizational needs of health and wellness. So Friday, I spent about 2 hours on a Zoom call with about 150 heads of schools from around the world, organized by an organization called the Association for the Advancement of International Education. So they organized it and they just said, you know what, we're a community, so let's try to learn together. And so listening to heads of schools who've been out of school for 8 weeks in China, colleagues who are just going through it now. So this morning, a friend who's the head of school at the American International School in Riyadh said the government just announced that we're closing. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we will stay open, but preparing for what's coming. So I'm not sure what your expectations are for today. I will present you with information. What the school is doing so far. It's not perfect, but I feel like we're in a really good place. So over the last week and a half, the principals, teachers have been focusing their time and energy on this work. So I feel like we're well prepared in the event that the government asks schools to close. So kind of walk through the presentation. This is just a snippet of the work we've done. This document is our distance learning plan at ACS. And it tries to hit about every scenario. And it talks about what teachers will do, what students will do, preparation, what happens if. So it's a pretty dense document. I've tried to put all of this into about 6 slides. This is a constant meeting point for our leadership team. So we met about it yesterday. We'll meet about it again tomorrow. And what I know is the parents have different levels of information. Right? Some of you will want to know exactly what we're doing, and some of you will be like, look, we're pretty flexible. So we're trying to meet the needs of everyone.
Is this new just as a result of the coronavirus?
Yes, it is. These are things we often think about, but this is the first time I've actually put it down on the paper, right? This isn't the first time that I have been through this, or most of the administrators. Right, back in the 90s, I went through the haze of Kuala Lumpur, where we closed school for 7 weeks. It went online, and that was really before the days of technology. And we had piles and piles of FedEx things that we were sending out to kids, and it was pretty crazy. And then lived through the bombings of Riyadh, where we closed school in early May for a month. That brought lots of other challenges just related to because it was right in the middle of IB exams and what happened, and how are we going to fix that? And then most of you have lived through bird flu, SARS, MERS, the occasional snow day here at ACS. And I'm always happy when we have snow days where we actually have snow. But that's just a little blip of how do we get you through a day, right? We're talking a lot more potentially long-term here. So with that, I'm going to jump into it. Thank you, Keith and Michelle, for coming. They've been great thought partners in this process. And I think their directive to me yesterday when we were talking about this presentation was like, don't commit us to anything that we just can't do. Because I'll be like, yeah, well, sure, we can do that. And they go. So I think they're here just to check on me. I'll give you the special code if I say something that I shouldn't. So distance learning at ACS. Sorry, Jen, today, how do we want to deal with this? Learning platforms, how to support learning online, and how do we support your child's well-being? This is new to most of us. I don't know if any of you have had your kids like in homeschool or completely online, but this is something that's new to us as we look at this long term. Right? The occasional snow day, we can manage effectively, it's easy to do. This is a little bit more daunting as we try to walk through this. So, I would ask that you as part of the ACS community, that we learn together, that we support each other, and that's parents and teachers, and parents and parents, and teachers and teachers. Because the anxieties that you might be feeling, our staff feel. Our staff have canceled vacations that they were planning on, and so there are lots of levels of anxiety, frustration, I think a fair bit of anger directed at probably me. The needs and expectations will evolve. If we go online, and if we go to a distance learning program, right, we have everything documented that we think will work. The reality of it is, once we get into this, there's going to be things that come up that you as parents will go, like, this just isn't working, or this doesn't make sense. We're nimble, we're flexible, we know this is unique, so we want to work with you as parents. More importantly, we want this to be the best experience for your children as possible. There will be ambiguity, right? I've gotten lots of feedback from the email I sent out yesterday, just about if you travel. And it's almost 50-50%. 50% of the parents were like, yeah, great, good decision. 50% of the parents were like, why are you doing this? This isn't in line with the government majority. It's not in line with the Center for Disease Control or the World Health Organization. So I actually am meeting with a quasi-advisory group of people that actually do this public health work as a profession to try to get their feedback and input. There will be ambiguity, right? And it's just, you will ask me questions today, possibly, and I'll go, okay, I just don't know. So it's that balance between clarity and not wanting to publish anything that is incorrect. So, as we've tried to look at our students, and this is who this is for, we've tried to look at the age appropriateness of it, right? Because what we do for a first grader is going to be very different than what we do for a fifth grader, than what we do for a 12th grader. You know your children, you know their levels of self-motivation and self-initiative. The harsh reality is if we go to distance learning, for the younger kids, parents are going to have to play some role. parents, caregivers, however you have your households organized. What we know from past experiences is some students will thrive at this work. This is what they will love to do because that's the kind of character they have and the learners they are. We know that some will struggle. What I have seen oftentimes is those kids who are really, really good students, right, in the life of a school, who like the structure of school and books and doing what the teacher asks them to do, they're going to be the ones that struggle because they're not getting the kind of feedback input that they have gotten in a classroom setting. Sometimes I get into the depths of anxieties about this and start looking at the bad sides of what if, and I keep trying to pull myself out, saying, look, this could be a really unique opportunity for us as a school, for your children. I'm trying to think about how it will be for you as parents who may be responsible for some of that work, but it may give students an opportunity to do things that they maybe normally wouldn't be able to do in school. A lot of what's in the plan is the compilation of work from hundreds of schools around the world. Some of them who have been doing this 8 weeks, some of them who are just starting, and some of us who are thinking about it. So this is shared information. If you went to, the American School of Beijing, you'd see a lot of these same structures in place. If you went to the UN school in Hanoi, you would see a lot of these structures in place. So a lot of this, most of this, I didn't just make up. Most of this is borrowed with permission from other schools. So one of the first pieces that's most important is the communication piece. If we go distance learning, the communication piece is going to become really hard. So what we need you to do is make sure that your information on PowerSchool is up to date. Phone numbers, emails, if there's more emails you want to add, you'll need to get on PowerSchool to do that. And I'll be sending a note out in the next day or two with how to do this. Just so you know, because some of you may not remember how to go in and update your contact information. Make sure you have password information available. Make sure your technology is ready. In the elementary school, we're trying to figure out how best we can help kids with that. Do we issue iPads, school iPads to kids? We're still trying to work out the details of what that looks like. And part of our plan, if we go off distance learning, we'll be looking at here's what kids will need to have access to, here's what you as parents will need to have access to. This is one of the biggest challenges that I have found. Misinformation is the enemy of good decision making. And for me, that came to life yesterday when the Ministry of Health published out this document, right? I walked down the hallways. Well, I didn't see the press conference, but I started getting newspaper articles, all in Arabic. And so as I would walk down the hallway and ask people to help me understand what it was, each person I came to would give me a different version, right, because of the nuances of Arabic and what that looks like. But people like to share information. Just have to make sure it's clear. Please verify anything you are sharing before you share it. This is not just for this is for all the WhatsApp groups that are out there, right? Easy to get on and go, oh, I heard from so-and-so that this happened, right? And pretty soon it's 150 people have it and it's not accurate, updated information. Then one parent could have caused a huge issue for nothing. And then WhatsApp and social media make it too easy for inaccuracies to spread, and they spread quickly. And that's probably true, those of you that work in any organization, you know how that works. Yes?
Sorry, on that one, I think you can even be more precise. If you want to know what's happening, you should go to the Ministry of Health's website, and you should go to WHO's health website, sorry. Because any other information is not accurate and is not issued by the government or someone, so those are the two, and so I'm UNICEF, so this is my job, and so just to be clear, those are the sources of information. Other websites from America, YouTube videos, whatever, those are not the source of official information that you can get, so,
Are you in the public health sector of UNICEF?
yes. Well, I'm the head of UNICEF, so.
Right, so I'm looking for people in the public health sector that can serve on an advisory board
Absolutely,
that
I will give you that.
I can tap into and just say, all right. Because
No
I'm just
problem.
finding that, like I said, I have a degree.
And we will also give you evidence, we're working with the government on the evidence for against closing schools. Closing schools actually is not a helpful exercise, so we are trying to help the government also do what you're doing, is prepare kids to be home. But trying to also advocate that it's not a good government policy to close schools.
Yeah, and the other piece of that, which I'm part of, is like home quarantine is also not necessarily an effective way unless it's really strict and rigid. And so my
Will you share those
degree
two
in
websites?
educational leadership.
Absolutely,
is
I can
nothing
share
to-
them, and just so that you always go to the two official websites. That is where you get the government's latest official information, and you get WHO's latest official.
And yes, the letter I sent yesterday had links to, I think it was a 111 number and a travel number that I found quite useful, yes.
It seems like the information released yesterday was not released on the Prime Minister's website, but on the Prime Minister's Facebook page, so is that also considered an official source?
Yeah, no, that is a travel decision, so that is a policy decision, and that was released by the government, so that is a government decision. Now, if you want to know about the actual situation of coronavirus in the country, and how many cases, or the 5 hospitals of reference that you can go to the Ministry of Health or WHO, and I'll give you WHO MENA region too, because they have their regional office here.
So I have to open this window a little bit. I was gonna make a really bad joke about it, feeling a bit feverish.
Too soon, Larry, too soon.
So, this is kind of the structural piece of what we're trying to do as a school, what we're asking you to do as parents. Yes,
Sorry, just when we say online, and maybe you might go through this in the presentation, but are teachers going to be interacting live with students, or are they just putting homework for students to do online? I'm not getting.
awesome question.
You'll get to it?
I'll get to it. If I don't, please, I'll come back to it.
Okay.
Right, technology. Managing information and news. I didn't have, I forgot to put it on here, but as you come in the door, the main door, if you're looking at the reception, there's a big sign to your right that says think. And I guess I would just like you, as you communicate with, whether it's a frustration with the school, or a frustration with another parent, or with your kids, that you use that acronym of think. Can one of you guys go grab the poster? I think there's a little poster that Ron would have.
Mike can join us.
And it's just the way to start. I actually have, my wife actually found that when we were engaged in conversations with our 2 girls who were living with us going to school. And I put it up on their mirrors in the bathroom and reference it all. So, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And if you just think that through, that'll be part of our, thank you, of the job. And our distance learning piece, just to try to keep framing the reference, because what I know from my colleagues who have been living this, for kids, like the first 5 days will be like, woo, yeah, online, woo. You know, the second week will be a little bit less romantic. The third, fourth week is just downright miserable. So I'm in regular contact. Some of you may know the Levitts, right? They've been out of Beijing now for starting 9 weeks. They're on a beautiful beach island in Thailand, but they've said, we hate this. Like, this is miserable. So our roles and responsibilities. So my role, administrator's roles, is just to establish clear channels of communication with you, with faculty, with students, and then the mix all between. Support families and maintain contact with relevant school services. So if your kids are in an ELL program, if they are getting speech and language therapy, if they are in a learning support program, if they're seeing a counselor, part of our job is to coordinate that work with our staff and your kids. Support teachers to ensure learning opportunities are available for all learners, and then support a fluid transition to distance learning, which we're working on. So that's part of our role. My role, and what my colleagues say is really important, is just the regular communication from the school to you as parents. The role of teachers is to create meaningful, authentic learning opportunities that enable learners to engage in similar experiences. What we know for sure is what we will provide in a distance learning program is not to the level or standard that we would want if kids were at school. It's just different. You can't beat the face-to-face interactions and communications and conversations and the learning that takes place, not just for the content stuff, but all the relationship stuff and all the parent stuff. Respond in a timely manner, create resources in a variety of media that supports learning, collaborate with other teachers, and provide regular office hours for learners and parents. So we appreciate the fact that many of you work, many of you are going to have to figure out how to be at home to help your younger kids. And we want to make sure that we're responsive as best we can to your needs, your frustrations, your celebrations, because we're also excited about publishing and sharing what's happening in different houses and different places. So there will be, and I'm not going to talk specifically to the technology piece, because most of you are already using some of this with your kids. I will tap into kind of our Gmail suite, the Google suite of options. So parents, so it's really important that if we do this, and again, optimistic that we will not, cautiously optimistic. It's important that from the first time you set routines with your kids, what is that going to look like? What is the day of a student going to look like? I've been working through in my head, okay, if I was a parent, what would I do? So our plan basically is we'll run school from 10 to 2. That's when teachers will be online with kids. There will be, in some cases, homework that kids are doing outside of that 10 to 2 piece. But we also want to make sure, which goes back to the wellness piece, that your kids have an opportunity to get exercise. So maybe the 8:30 to 9:30 hour is some kind of family exercise at your house, whether it's walking or if you have a pool, or and we'll start compiling resources to help you generate ideas. Haven't figured it out, but we also want to post somewhere. The parents can say, oh, here's what I did with my kids today. This was really successful. And so you as parents can start the collaboration of sharing your wisdom with each other. I don't know how many of you already have spaces where your kids learn. They have one place where they do their homework. So continue with that unless it's in their bedroom with the door closed. Again, from the wisdom of others, it's best, particularly, well, with all the kids that they're at a common space, right? If you have more than one child, maybe it's a dining table or somewhere that somebody can monitor the work.
But they wouldn't distract each other?
You know, that's something you have to figure out as a parent. Again, never done this, so, you know, I think it'll be a matter of trial and error, right? If it was my children, I would put them in two opposite ends of the house because they probably would distract each other. But you know your kids best. If appropriate, monitor communication coming from your kids. Right? In the elementary school, and since Michelle's here, she may want to talk about that. Just the emails for the younger kids coming, they're probably going to need parents to help manage some of that. Begin each day with a check-in. Hey, what are you going to learn today? Let's look at what it looks like. And if we go distance learning, I will be sharing part of this packet of information that will give you questions to ask as you do these check-ins, and we'll try to walk you through as best we can, some ideas and suggestions.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Will there be a platform?
Sorry?
Will there be a platform for the parents of the same age group, same grade level to communicate, exchange information, and perhaps organize something together?
Yeah, I mean, no, that probably will happen organically, particularly with like your middle school and high school kids. I mean, in the pack, we've said Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram is not an official way that ACS communicates with our parents or students. The reality is, most of the conversations that will happen between kids will probably happen through Instagram or Snapchat. Parents, because we're more mature, could be doing it through Facebook. You know, part of this is just getting organized. Kids need reflective time. Kids need exercise time. And we haven't quite figured out, and nobody in the world has quite figured this out, is how do you best manage and monitor the amount of time your kids are on their screen, right? Because that's how we communicate with them, that's what assignments will be, and that's probably something as parents that you guys are gonna have to try to figure out. Give us feedback, because one of our conversations has been around, okay, can we do things distance learning that aren't necessarily connected to a screen? Yeah, keep your children social, but there has to be some, we would suggest there are some guidelines and rules around social media. And that's, you know, as a parent, I'm assuming that's part of your constant challenge with your kids, is managing that piece. I hate to tell you this, but it probably is only going to get worse if you go to the distance learning piece. And then the last one, it may be some upskilling for you to help you learn some of the systems that we're using, some of the platforms that we're using. Most of we've had a few conversations around. We use Google Hangouts and Google Meets. I was on Friday with 120 heads on Zoom, which has the capability to do that. It's pretty cool because you can raise your hand, you can write comments. The challenge with that is nobody knows. We haven't trained kids on Zoom, our staff don't know Zoom, and so it's trying to stay with what we know. Possible, if we're into this 8 weeks, that sometime in that time we say, the Google Hangouts isn't working, let's look at a different platform. So we'll all have to learn together. I'm not saying we'll do that, but that's the nimbleness and the flexibility we're trying to have. Students,
Take Skype.
And these are conversations that are already happening with kids and with staff, right? Establish routines, identify comfortable spaces, regularly monitor online platforms, do your best to meet your timelines, do your best work, collaborate and support your peers, and then comply with online expectations, just about online etiquette and what you say online. And, so we will be providing some support for how to help keep your kids well, tied to routines, anxiety levels, activity levels, and social connections. The anxiety piece, kids will read our anxiety levels. So if something you're anxious about, they will probably be anxious about it. That's why we have our counselors involved in this to help you as parents and to help your kids as you manage this. And like I said, 5 days into it, we'll look one way. 7 weeks into it, we'll look a different way.
I just have a quick question. If a child is stuck on something, like let's say math, that's a challenge, will there be a way that they can one-on-one contact the teacher and say, I can't figure this out?
Yes.
It's like a lot of times Natalie will go to Miss Gooday's after school and she'll spend 5 minutes and, oh, I get it.
Yeah, and that'll be part of like the office hours. So it's best possible to try to maintain that connection. So yes, what we've said in our documents that we would send out is we don't want you as parents doing your kids' work. Because as a parent, sometimes I found that was the easiest way to get homework done. Right? I would just say, okay, so here, the answer is this. Oh, thanks, Dad. So that is part of the teacher's role, is to help students if they're stuck. Yes?
What about AP students?
What
What
about?
do we do with them? I mean, I know they have a mock test, they have mock exams.
So I'm going to let Keith speak to that since he's here, but we have been in regular contact with college boards, right, who administer the SATs and the APs. So right now, 3.5, I think the latest statistic, 3.5 million students are out of school.
300.
300.
So all these organizations are like, what do we do? AP is one of them. We've been in contact with them. They're saying, look, we're trying to figure this out as well.
Their immediate concern is with the standardized testing. So we've been asking about the exams, and they said it's a fluid situation. Let us get back to you on that. But this was back a couple of weeks ago, and even this week that we got in touch with them again and got a response. But they're sorting out. There's SAT sites that they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with those. In fact, one coming up, an SAT exam, which they're concerned about. But it's going to be different for different regions, and it is a, as Larry said, it's a complex problem for them to deal with. But
one of the things that Keith has talked about is, yeah, there probably will be more time expectations for kids who are doing AP work if they're doing it distance learning. And that really will just depend on what the teacher is doing and where they are in their syllabus.
I have one more question. Office hours, during office hours, can the kids actually come and see the teachers or no?
Most likely not. So that's the other question that will have to be determined. I know I have a colleague, a friend who's the head of the American school in Milan. Like, so he's deep into the mess of this. They closed school a number of weeks ago. He asked teachers to come back, like just to do some like cleanup work and collaborative work. The police were at the door of the school, turned them all away and said, go home, you all need to be in your homes. If the government requires schools to close in Jordan, I don't know what they'll do. Ideally for us, it'd be great to have at least teachers come. We have talked about if, which is a whole nother challenge, if schools close over spring break, there will be some elementary kids who may need some packets of information. And so we thought, okay, how could we set up kind of a drive-by right at the front gate where people come in, we have big boxes, we check this out to kids and pick up your coffee and on your way, right? So those are all, that's embracing the ambiguity, and it's really nervous.
Would you provide video conferencing with teachers
Yes.
on those platforms?
Okay, they just looked at me and said, so.
Yeah, that's a good, yes.
Like you have a number of kids like with a teacher and actually do.
There's a lot of different ways to do it. That's synchronous learning, you know, where everybody's in a classroom and they're all online at the same time, which we haven't done yet, but it's available. And the asynchronous, where the teachers do a screencast. So that if you've ever heard of a flipped classroom, where sometimes they'll do a lesson and the kids will watch the lesson and come in with questions the next day. So there's both of those possibilities going on. We spent a lot of time talking about this, asking a lot of the same questions that you're asking, and trying to make some consistent decisions about our class times. But class times we're going to try to mirror that as closely as we can. So an assignment will be due when that period is due. So we'll expect all the kids to have to turn that in at that time. So that's going to make them adhere to the class schedule time. That's also a good time to answer questions, you know. But we're trying to avoid as teachers being on their email from 8 until 10 at night. That's the thing that we're concerned about. And your kids. You know, because when people have experimented with it before, that's one of the things they've found is that we over-plan it, you know, especially in the beginning. And we'll get better at it as time goes on.
So can you speak to how distance and time zones might affect your plan for synchronous learning?
It's gonna make it harder.
Yes.
That's why. Yeah. So the asynchronous, where they're making screencasts and the kids can download them and then respond later, is going to work better in those situations. But yes, that's it.
So one of the, this is my experience in Malaysia, right? We were in Kuala Lumpur. Hayes came, and families dispersed to every part of the globe, and so it just made it a lot harder, obviously, to have everybody on at the same time zone. Eventually what we did, particularly for the high school classes, we said, we are on KL time. You're just gonna have to get out of bed, right? This is for the older kids. And that's just the way it is. We haven't thought a lot about that to a large degree, because what we figure, maybe wrongly, is that people are gonna stay. Right, people are gonna stay here, so we're on the same time zones. So we haven't given a lot of thought to that. I think my first reaction to how we would address that would be, we're on Jordan time. It's hard for a second grade student, which we probably wouldn't be doing that kind of learning with anyway, to say, okay, you need to get up at 2 in the morning so you can talk to your class.
There's only 10 weeks left of school, right? So if there is a split.
How would you address group work? I mean, as part of learning is not just the individual, but the group work is happening to be online as well. But more importantly, not just directly with the teacher, but with each other. I mean, obviously with some of the kids, it's not going to be as big of a deal, but I know my little one's going to ask when she can see her friends even to play, even if she can't see school.
Yeah, so.
So I don't know how to address that, because obviously we're not allowed to be at school. We should not be scheduling play dates.
So the group play date, like that's not our business.
Yeah, I know, but specifically.
I think, and I'll check faces, because Michelle's going, no, and.
I think that with the younger children, there will be less group work happening
With
with the young ones. Yeah.
And Google Docs is a great tool for group work in the high school, so that they will use that to a certain extent.
And so that goes back to the age appropriate piece. We're trying to make sure what we do is age appropriate. So to ask a group of 11th grade physics kids to do something that's pretty appropriate that they can do. Asking a group of first graders to talk about a book they've read, maybe a little more, less effective.
One last question. What about, I know school.
Really?
What about, our school is gonna be done on the 20th of May. Is there any way that school would end up being prolonged?
I don't think so. I mean, my initial is, yeah, I don't think so. I think the bigger question is, do we close school early? Right, we've had conversations, which is probably too late in the game, do we change spring break? Like, should we just cancel spring break and plug through until schools are closed? Today, I'm not prepared to do that. Tomorrow, don't know. So here,
Trying to be optimistic and assuming that schools will not be closed. But there are families that have plans to travel and will indeed travel over the spring break. What will be the dynamic at school and for these kids being quarantined for 14 days after the spring break? Because I think that will even be harder to manage than to taking a black and white decision.
can I come back to that? Because that's a question I've been trying to answer since about 4 o'clock this morning on my email. So let me come back to that. So here are some resources we're trying to manage and work out the details of. Right, we do have about 18 questions, this is on our document, that we think parents will ask. Again, not that we think, these are questions parents have asked that have been culminated from all these other schools that are dealing with this right now. Ideas for non-school related activities, we're just making up stuff, take an online cooking class with your kids and do a family trivial pursuits and trace your heritage and right, there's a million of ideas that can be generated, and that's where we probably would look to you as parents, bright, smart, creative, to just start dumping things that other parents can use. And then in ACS Ideas Bank, making work at home not just bearable but enjoyable. Right? What might that look like? What are you doing as parents to manage your kids that other parents might be able to learn from? So, Paya, I don't know if we got to your question.
No.
Which was what?
Is it live online learning, or is it, homeworks posted on the different platforms and
Would you guys like to speak to that?
Yeah, the answer is yes. It will be both. We use Google, it's going to be different between high school and elementary.
Yeah.
And I don't know where
middle
high school happens to be geared for success in this area, and anybody that's taken an online course knows that the more mature the learner, the better we are set up for this kind of thing. So we'll still use Google Classroom. There'll still be assignments posted normally, and then we're looking into Zoom and we're looking into these other platforms so that we can have live conversations. It's going to be limited, and as Larry said, some kids thrive on this and other kids find it, very frustrating to do.
Do you know if this applies to middle school?
Can I just say, the middle school will probably be a blend between the high school and the elementary school. I mean, the younger the kids, the harder live conversation is. So.
And in the elementary school, we will make sure that there are, what's central to the way that we teach in the elementary school, especially around literacy, are conferences between teachers and students. And so we will have scheduled conferences where the children will have their time, and that's their time with the teacher, and it's one-on-one with the child and the teacher. And that will happen more than what we would see as office hours or where the teacher's done a screencast and they're giving the lesson. And there will be, with the younger children, more of the one-to-one with the teacher and less of the full class instruction. And as the kids are getting into 4th and 5th grade, it'll flop where there will be less one-on-one with the teacher and more of the instruction. And so we're really looking at what the students are used to in their classrooms and how we can replicate that the best that we can within a distance learning environment, and also what we feel like the students can handle.
when you think about it, assessment is going to be the real challenge in high school. How do you do assessment where, you know, the kid doesn't have two computers open and it's just referencing what to do? So a lot of what we've talked about is product and performance-based assessment, where the kids will be asked to create something, or they'll be asked to film themselves doing something. And then, you know, we do have some areas that are really, really challenging. One of them is with the yearbook. We have a yearbook class, and, you know, it's all here. It's on our server. You know, so it's going to be difficult and that's when we really wanted kids to come in, but we realized that probably isn't going to happen. So the teacher may, you know, just complete the yearbook.
The other piece that we've had conversations about, which haven't quite resolved, are just issues around child protection. Right, so all of a sudden you are inviting us into your homes, and not that I have any concerns about it. But it's probably just giving you some guidelines to protect all of us. So that's pretty much the presentation. I do want to come back to your point. So at this point, and I have a meeting at 12:30 with a group of public health professionals. Just looking at was that the right decision to make, and what are our alternatives, if there are any. So you have that side of people who, look, I have my ticket booked, and I'm going to a place that, as of yet, only has 3 confirmed cases, or none. In a week's time, I'm going to come back. No idea how many cases are going to be in that country, but you're coming back on, assuming, planes that have people who've come from who knows where, through airports. And so my challenge is, how do I protect the community here, right? Because within these walls I have some control. Outside, absolutely none. So I think I've learned a lot about individual and community infection and what that looks like, and I kept asking people, okay, but what's the line? Like, if you tell me if there are 30 confirmed cases, then that's the line, then I can say and message out. If you're in a country that has 30 or more confirmed cases, by the time you get on your plane to Jordan, here's what it is, right?
Is it one case that you, even if it's one case, we're gonna?
Yes.
That's all.
But Larry, at minimum, whatever decision you will make, the government guidelines will be adhered to, right? So the government now is saying France, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
you either have a certificate or you come back and you do quarantine. So that at least is
Yes.
going to be complied with,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, because so for those of you who are traveling, the other side that I get is, you know, me and my family, we live with our grandparents in a house. And if somebody has traveled to wherever and comes back, and my kids or I get infected, then you just put the high risk people at risk because you wanted to travel to wherever. And so, obviously, my I'm going, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So now it's just kind of go, okay, what really does make sense? You said it was the last question.
How are you gonna know that people travel? That's, you know, I mean.
So yeah, you know, this goes back to there's a level of self-trust. I mean, probably wasn't there when you came in, but we put a sign outside that says, if you've traveled outside of Jordan in the last 2 weeks, do not enter, stop. Like, so, it's okay, it's okay. It wasn't there because we wanted to put a time frame on it. But then again, okay, so you stop, you don't enter. Yeah, I traveled to wherever, you know, in the last 2 weeks, and we'll go, okay, thank you. So.
I mean, like yesterday, a friend of mine is in Germany,
Yeah.
and she traveled to Germany via Holland, via Amsterdam. So because Germany, Spain, and France, you're not allowed to come back in unless you have this certificate,
she's going back via Amsterdam.
Yeah,
That's, you know, that's the dilemma.
Yes.
I just think, to be honest, and I say it to all the people I work with, that you're not going to, keeping people out is not how you protect yourself. Protecting yourself is protecting your family by washing their hands, covering their face, keeping social distances, washing doorknobs. I think you have to get past that fear of, can we protect this community? Can we keep these people safe? It's not. You know, who even knows how many cases are in Jordan? So stop believing that the fear, you know, something's coming from outside. It's here, it's around you, that's not the problem. So the problem is protecting you and your family and the community, and by keeping people out is not how you protect it. It only creates fear and it only creates bad habits versus trying to make sure that all your hands are washed. You know, you're all sitting on chairs where 100 kids, you've all opened the door that has that. You know, have you wash your hands? How often is the school cleaning the doorknobs? I mean, in my office, they're cleaned about 6 times a day.
I have to disagree with you.
Okay.
We are in a containment phase still, and the World Health Organization is still discussing it as a containment phase. Supporting international travel right now fundamentally goes against the concept of containment. Well, so I agree with you at a community level.
Yes.
We have a responsibility to think about the degree to which we travel internationally and expand the definition of our community beyond this narrow geography.
No, I'm not, I'm obviously, and I am not WHO, so please do not take I'm just saying as a community, because how are you going to find out if someone's father or grandmother traveled? I
Well, you
mean,
can't, but
you
you
can't,
can
so-
reinforce though that
right.
travel right now is generally not in the community's, so broadly the community's interest.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the stance that we're taking. Yeah, am I under the false assumption that people are gonna enter this campus and possibly carrying the coronavirus, right? I can't give anybody a guarantee of that. Can I look at the school and say, are we doing everything we can possibly do to keep our community healthy? Maybe not, but we're working at it, right? And that's everything from the hand sanitizers at the doors to the regular cleaning of doorknobs and high traffic areas. You know, and that's the other piece is, okay, there's a lot of doorknobs on this campus, right? And so teams out, you know, scrubbing and because as I walk around, like I stepped into the elevator, I was like, you know, but so I think you're right. There's things individuals can do to reduce their personal risk. We have to do as good a job as we possibly can with the containment piece and manage, because it's not just the public. Now we're not just in the public health piece, right? That's just one part of our job. We're also at the reducing anxiety piece as an institution, and we're also trying to create meaningful work for students. We're trying to support parents. So that's part of the challenge of our work. Yes, and then in this way.
Thanks, Larry. This is very helpful, by the way, and I think you and the team have done a lot of thinking. Let me just ask you, can you just share with us some thoughts around what happens if someone is positive and has happened to frequent a part or sections of the school, etc., deep cleaning, are you going to isolate areas, are you going to do anything? Just, again, it's very fluid. People are thinking through the answers, but I'm sure you've formed some sort of a straw man on how you deal with it.
Well, my guess is, what I would do is if we had positive tests here, we'd close the school, do a deep cleaning, and seek advice from
So have you identified, because I know from where I work, or we have offices around the world, deep cleaning companies are not necessarily available everywhere. I don't know what deep cleaning means.
We have actually this weekend, a company came in, kind of on a trial. They did it free for us, and they went through and spent about 3 hours in the early years, and just did a deep cleaning of that space. You know, it's all EPA approved, you know, the Environmental Protection Agency in the US. That was all part of our work with them before we had them come in. We are looking at them coming in over the spring break to doing the same kind of thing school-wide. And that's everything from, you know, the fitness center to the play toys to, does it actually work? But for me, it goes back to, am I doing everything we can possibly do to keep our community healthy? And if that means them coming in and cleaning. So I think there are 3 companies in Jordan that do that kind of work. So,
Just a suggestion, could we put in the bathroom some kind of note reminding the kids to wash for 20 seconds? Because I remind mine, especially my 6th grader, every time, are you doing it for 20 seconds? Because I watched him at the beginning, he'd go, I'm like, that's not 20 seconds. I don't know, maybe a
We
note
teach
or
them
a
to sing a
post.
song while they're, like, sing happy birthday song while
Yeah, but
they're
if you tell a middle schooler that, like, Mom,
yeah.
yeah,
maybe some, just a
I don't know how.
Happy birthday song, they go really
how
fast.
I'm gonna do that. I'm not gonna.
It's not 20 seconds, it's a technique for watching your hands.
Yeah, I know,
So
you
it's
gotta
like you have to
get
go
it.
like this, like this, like
Yeah.
this, and like this, like
That
this.
doesn't work.
So that, it's
Yeah.
not actually it's the technique for this, washing your hands, because you need to get underneath.
I think that would be an awesome thing for an evening event. I just can't imagine how we would possibly monitor that in, so I did see in the bathroom somewhere where they had the sand box, right, where you turn it over and you wash. Is that- Yeah, so for me, as I walk around the school, right, as I said, this could really take me to a deep, ugly place, right, about, you know, what would happen and what's being cleaned and what's not being cleaned, and I just have to keep focused on, are we doing everything we can possibly do? If not, what else can we do in preparing that? So we'll take questions and come across here.
I actually just have a comment. I want to share a word of appreciation for how you've been managing the communication with the kids about it. I think there was a high level of anxiety initially, but I see that at least with my kids in our circle, it has reduced. They're more aware, they're more conscious of how to deal with it, and also how to be kind with others and how not to translate this into excluding people or treating people badly. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then that was maybe the Thursday letter, just some, here's how you can talk to your kids about it, and because it is, I mean, parenting is the hardest job we'll ever have. And it's always nice to have some tried and tested ways to engage. Yes?
Just to ask about your communication on the travel requirements. Are you going to update it or change it following your meeting, just so that?
Maybe. Maybe. Yes.
I would think in all these situations, you may need to change many things many times on a daily basis, because that's how organizations and the world is working, including authorities and healthcare authorities, etc. Right, so nothing, by the way, I don't know, I'm not reacting to, but it's just, I think we all need to be open-minded to the fact that this is very fluid, and accordingly, decision-making is going to be fluid, and maybe right or wrong at different junctions in time.
Yeah, and that's why we, in my head, I'm just saying, you know, we need to be nimble and we need to be flexible.
Yeah.
Because what exists today won't exist tomorrow. And I don't want to get stuck in, well, this is what we said, and, right, I have no problems with going, oh yeah, maybe I didn't do that very well, so let's try to get it.
Could I request, if it's possible, that you have a space on the ACS website with your latest guidance and information? I think emails is fantastic, but sometimes we miss them. We are working off not always the latest, but knowing there's a single reference point would be helpful.
So are you asking like for a pop-up or just, because I
haven't really thought of it beyond knowing that.
So I think we did add, if you look at our website up in the right-hand corner, I think we did add a coronavirus link. and I'm actually not sure what's there. But I'll go double check and maybe just communicate that if you want a quick reference on the website.
Well, I'm particularly interested in your policy decisions. I think there's lots of research out there and information about the virus, but your decisions
Yeah, letters.
at school, right? Anything you would update by email,
Yeah.
or particularly if your positions change,
Yeah.
knowing where that is on the site would be super helpful.
Yes.
So we're new here, this is our second week at ACS. Even just wondering where the meeting room is, all of a sudden we're talking about online, so it's great, I appreciate the communication. It's great to be here.
Where are you coming from?
Beijing, right?
So they closed all the schools in Dubai.
So the day we left, March 1st, is when they closed all the kindergartens, everything, and then a few days later, they closed down all the schools. And then a couple of days ago, I got an email that all corporate training, all corporate functions, and that's my area of business, is halting as well. So, you know, we're kind of stuck. I just want to share a piece about the distance learning component, because our younger son is in 4th grade. He's the one who started here. Our older son is in high school, and he's been doing online high school since September. And it was just kind of a decision we've been thinking about for a couple of years, purely from a technology point of view, from, you know, proximity to the business world as opposed to being in an exclusively academic environment, and all these different things. So it had, you know, obviously this was not in the picture, but he started 9th grade in September, and it's an American school based in the US, but they have an online, a fully online, you know, accreditation, all this. And it's an amazing experience if parents and schools and families are able to adapt to it. It's very different than a traditional school environment, but it opens up a lot of opportunities where, you know, I get to take him sometimes with me to the office, we travel, we do stuff that, you know, because it's live, so they sit down at a certain time in the evening, and it's live, all the students and teachers, and they're logged in from all over the world.
Is it based out of the US?
Yeah,
So they're dealing time zones.
So there's, you know, they have students right now in China, they have students in Japan, Asia, Europe, all over. And it's great, it takes a lot of discipline. It's very enriching if you're able to rethink what school looks like. But again, certain things take longer, so they still do math and they still do all kinds of stuff. And for certain aspects, for my older son, it requires more time to sit down, and they're, you know, watching Khan Academy videos and other stuff just as support. They have office hours, but it also can be very enriching for students. So it's a complete mental shift in terms of what it looks like. I hope we don't get there here, because you know.
One of the things that we've talked about in the high school is making it a requirement that every high school student takes an online course. Right? My kids have both been to university. Every semester, they took an online course through their university. Thank goodness they've taken online courses here, because what they said is kids who haven't taken online courses initially really struggle with the different modality of learning. So, last comment.
Sorry, if something were to change, and the ministry kind of says, we're now shutting things down, are we gonna get kind of last minute notice, first of all, for a shutdown? And then when things start to open back up, what kind of time frame could we expect for notices?
Yeah,
Is it
I would
early
hope,
meeting notices?
what I would hope is that we have enough time. You know, the ministry, like they did in Dubai, the ministry said it's Wednesday, Sunday is going to be closed. So we have a couple days just for. In what happened in Riyadh was the government said you're closing tomorrow. Like this was like at 5 o'clock, I think. So you're closing tomorrow. And so everybody just went, what? So we're preparing for both.
Yeah, and we have systems in place for snow days that will get us through for a couple of days, so that the children will be engaged and you'll have the opportunity to begin those routines that are going to be really important for kids. And then we'll use those couple of days to get ourselves ramped up to where we need to be. I think one thing that's important is that our children are still in school, and we still want them to have a high quality of education while they're here right now. So we aren't spending all of our time, our teachers aren't spending all of their time preparing for something that may never come to be. They're spending their time making sure your children have a quality education right now. And so we will need a couple of days, but we have our snow day plans in place for that time.
And then for the re-entry, again, assuming that we'll get a date, say this is when schools can open up, so we can just backtrack and figure out that piece. I was going to say something, but so we hope we have some planning time. And then obviously if we get students back, part of that, the first days back will just be conversations about reentry and what you're doing, how was it, and let's talk about to process the experience. So I really appreciate you coming out, open to comment, feedback, suggestions, thoughts. As we look optimistically at continuing our program, but also preparing for the possibilities of continuing the program, but just in a different way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if you have questions that are burning that you didn't ask or didn't want to ask, there are pens and papers. You can just write down questions, thoughts, comments, suggestions.
I just don't know, you say no one can travel, but how can you say some kids can travel? Like, how can you figure out, like, whether a kid is part of a unit? You're saying your child has traveled, they come back to school. And we also have to figure out what the quarantine process is. I mean, I don't even think that 2 weeks is a necessary official quarantine time.
So it was okay. Are you sure?
But then they're saying, I mean, we're trying to work with the government to tell them that it's not necessary, but that's fine. But let's see, I mean, these are political decisions. Like, there's no politics, it's actually not political. In most cases, just like in Dubai, because it doesn't